Living with daily persistent pain is exhausting. Even the thought of overcoming our pain seems insurmountable. Understand why pain is complex and learn actionable steps that will improve your quality of life. Now let's join Amber Kylick on A Path from Pain.
How to build your quality of life with play. In our North American society, we've been told that play is for children, and it's hard work and putting our nose to the grindstone that'll get us where we want to go. Now, that seems like a rational, logical idea back in the day. But now, in the age of research, there are so many things that we've been told growing up that we believed were true. They sounded true. But now we know better. So, let's learn and move on. When we talk about playing as an adult, what's the first thing you think of? Playing a card game? Playing a sport? What about playing a prank on someone? That's about it. Because when we think about free time play, we look at kids running around the playground, making up games and being carefree. And now that we're adults, that isn't even in our wheelhouse, unless maybe you have kids. For the most part, we've never really equated learning with free play. Okay, so if you have children and have done a little bit of digging into different ways to raise kids, you'll have come across the research that clearly shows free time play is beneficial and much needed to children's development on multiple levels. Play is not empty time. It's how children build the brains that are required for work and learning. That's a quote from Deborah McNamara from the Neufeld Institute in her article about playtime and child development. Now, I could do a whole episode on why playtime for children is important, but you're here for your learning, and I'm guessing you're older than 8. So let's get to how and why the idea of play is so beneficial to adults. Last week, I talked about different types of rest that are important for recovery and energy levels. One of those was creative rest. This can certainly fall under the umbrella of play, when we can use our imagination to create different things, maybe art or writing. One type of creative rest is mind wandering. When you were in elementary school, how often were you told to stop mind wandering and pay attention? I remember particularly in grade 5, Miss Hurak, you was always telling me to stop wandering and focus. Allowing our minds to wander off can be a great tool to allow for creativity. It can also be a slippery slope into the rabbit hole of negativity and worry. And I talked about this as well in that episode about the mental load of chronic pain. But studies have shown multiple benefits, including being able to focus more clearly after the mind wandering, can assist in goal setting and planning. You can prevent fatigue and mental burnout, and even help reduce stress. Even Jeff Bezos allows mind wandering when working on solving a problem. So, if you have a moment now, push pause and let your mind wander for a few minutes. Maybe on a problem that you're working on, or even thinking up a new schedule plan to build more play and movement into your day. Welcome back. The idea of play can come in many forms. One is creative type of play, exploring, using your imagination, and letting your mind wander. Another type of play is called deliberate play, as talked about in Adam Grant's book, The Hidden Potential. Reading this chapter on deliberate play fueled my initial idea for this episode and supports so many ideas I generate when working with clients. Building movements around their current skills, as well as creating exercises to help them achieve their goals. So it was interesting to learn the science behind how we can use play in ways that build and refine our skills. Anything from practicing a musical instrument to playing sports. It all makes sense to me now that I've read it. But we're usually all so caught up in organized, structured, working hard type of learning that we've seriously looked past the idea of deliberate play. One example given in the book is of Stephen Curry. He's an amazing basketball player for the Golden State Warriors and used deliberate play in his practice to build all of his skills. Prior to incorporating play with his coach, Brandon Payne, he was an incredible marksman for three-pointers, but the rest of his playing skills were seriously lacking, apparently to the point where he would drop passes and even dribble off of his foot. Brandon Payne knew the importance of making practice a fun workout. He created every drill as a game, and each time they played the game, there were different skills that were worked on and challenged. This level of deliberate play isn't just mastering a skill, it's about changing things up, which isn't just motivating, it's also key for learning. And if you think about playing a sport, this level of variability and fun challenge is key. There's so much evidence now that shows when young athletes specialize in one sport, they peak early and burn out. So, side note here. Yes, if you have a strength training program, you are going to get the best outcomes from building on the same program in a very structured way. So if you need to be strong for a particular skill, go with a regular routine. And to be honest, some people love a regular routine. But in terms of building good habits, staying motivated, and enjoying tasks, build in play, create variety, and make it a game. You'll not only stay motivated to continue your program, but you'll also be creating a variety of movements and strengths for all sorts of daily life activities. Now, this isn't always an easy thing to do on your own. That is a huge benefit of having a trainer or someone to help you lead you through this program. Making little tweaks here and there, even just once a month, can make big differences. If you're interested in working with me, I do have an online program where we meet up once a month to tweak things, weekly emails from myself, as well as over 50 hours of different programming and classes. But let's continue. This takes me to the concept of gamification, which is not deliberate play. Gamification is everywhere these days, and it's another one of my huge pet peeves, especially when working with kids. I remember my daughter had just started grade 1. She came home and told me that the teachers would pay the students with fake money each time they got in line first, or were quiet, or did things that they are asked. Now, that's kind of okay. They were then told that a few times a year they could trade in this money for gifts. It doesn't sound horrible, but they would also take money away from kids who were misbehaving. In grade 1, it's not uncommon that there are a handful of kids that have a hard time behaving to the standard of the teacher. I saw some huge holes in this system. Gamification of activities is different than the positive motivation that you get from play. It relies on you seeking a dopamine rush that will distract you from the boredom of the task at hand. This is very different from building a healthy motivation for learning. I'll talk more about dopamine and how it affects us in a future episode, so stay tuned. Now, down to the childlike play that we see at the playground. This is also very beneficial to us as adults as well. I like to equate the playground with an urban hike. We work on movements that are practical human movements like jumping, climbing, throwing, catching, and more. Imagine going for a hike and jumping over a small creek, having to climb over a fallen tree, or throw a pack to a fellow hiker to catch. Yeah, our current world has designed enough gadgets to make all these movements less likely to be required. But let's get back to basics, because in the big picture, we want quality of life, not the ease of life. That leads to a downward spiral that no one really truly wants. Here's the catch I see so often. Once we become adults, and I use that word in quotations, we feel like we need to act a certain way, to be seen as grown up, mature, and all our lives we've been told that playing is for kids. Have you ever seen a grown person who is playing freely with kids in a made-up game? Do they look their age? Do they look sad, anxious, or lonely? Not likely. They're usually smiling, laughing, and looking young at heart. There's a song that I love by John Wart Hannam, Young at Heart. The first line is, "May you die young at heart at a ripe old age." I often teach movement sessions in some of my favorite playgrounds, and we build our skills using the environment. Balancing while walking on lines, hanging from the monkey bars, climbing over different structures, throwing balls, bouncing them off walls, and catching them in different ways. Adding in some deliberate play and challenges. So many ideas. And it's all fun and games until we play follow the leader. It always amazes me how these grown adults will often automatically shift from spirited into looking for approval, making sure that they're doing the right skill. It doesn't usually take long for that to disappear, and we move into the flow of just using our environment with new ideas and playful challenges. Listen, this idea of playful movement also adds to less pain. We start seeing movement as a form of flow, not some rigid, perfect form of a neutral spine or pulled back shoulders. Remember the episode on posture? If not, head back and give it a listen. This hypervigilance over moving the right way needs to stop. Yes, if you're injured or training for a sport, there is likely a more efficient way of moving for force and strength. But in our daily lives, it's the variety of movement, finding the ease, the flow of moving our bodies that adds to our quality of life, especially when we're looking at reducing or managing the pain levels we live with day to day. One last comment on play before we close up. I want you to blend this idea with the addition of being curious. Curiosity can be a key component in building new habits. Instilling the desire for being curious can help us pay attention to sensations without becoming hypervigilant and judging something we do. I'll talk more about curiosity in another episode because there's so much more we can accomplish if we just pause to be curious about something, whether it's a bad habit or an uncomfortable movement. I've been working with these ideas about play and curiosity when I work with clients and teach classes. Having curiosity and a degree of play when approaching movement, instead of having to be black and white, has shown to not only be productive when working with persistent pain, but it also gives each individual their own path from pain. This open-ended approach allows for stories to come out, allows for truly cherished goals that connect to positive motivation for living a better life to be found, and lastly, allows anyone living with daily pain to tell their story and be heard. So, where can you start adding play into your day? No, I didn't make up that rhyme on purpose. Well, maybe I did. Think of finding the ease, not the easy, in the movement of our bodies. I've talked about the breath in previous episodes. It's a very necessary function of our bodies. But the moment we hold stress, anxiety, fear, our breath is challenged. This reaction can hold a purpose, but when it happens day after day, it builds poor habits and leads to more and more challenges. So, first, take a breath. Now, just take a moment and imagine being able to move your body with ease. That's a great first step. Now for the hard part, building the habit of doing it. Look at ways to challenge yourself. Not push, but challenge your ideas of moving your body in your environment. Head out for a walk. If you walk past a bench, maybe add in a few squats. Or sit and move through some rotations. If you walk past a playground, go and reach up for the monkey bars or find a painted line to walk on, just not the ones that are in the middle of the road. Join me online or in a movement session to learn different ways of building practical human movement skills that will fully support you in building quality of life for years to come. Again, honestly, I could talk about this for days. The idea of play as an adult has so many benefits, physically and mentally. Find your play, something you can explore with very few rules. Interested in learning more? Check out some of the articles, maybe my YouTube channel, Critical Movement YYC, or head to my website. I do have 2 free movement programs, one for building strength with very little equipment, and one for natural movement with no equipment. Or just check out the monthly online program. Gain access to a movement program designed just for you. I'm here to help. Either way, hit that subscribe button. If you like this episode, let me know why in the comments below. If you learned something that has helped you, consider supporting this podcast and helping me keep producing content that can help others.